The navigation officer stared at his screen with confusion written across his scaled face. Commander Thexal of the Imperial Survey Corps had mapped 17 star systems this month alone. But he had never seen anything like this. "Commander, you need to see this," the officer said, his voice uncertain. Thexal walked across the bridge of the survey vessel Distant Pioneer. The ship was small by Imperial standards, only 300 meters long, but it carried the most advanced scanning equipment in the Galactic Empire. For 2,000 years, the Empire had been expanding steadily through the galaxy. 47 different species lived under the Imperial banner. 10,000 star systems paid tribute to the Emperor. Nothing had ever stopped their growth. Until now. The screen showed a line in space. It was not a physical barrier, but every sensor on the ship detected it clearly. Along this invisible boundary, thousands of devices floated in the darkness. They were old. Some looked ancient beyond measure. They came in different sizes and shapes, built from materials the ship's computer could not identify. "What are they?" Thexal asked. "Buoys, sir. Warning beacons. They're broadcasting on every frequency we can detect." "Play the message." A voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect Imperial Common, a language used across all member worlds. The words were clear and simple. "Terran exclusion zone. Entry is forbidden. This is your only warning." The message repeated. Then it changed languages. Now it spoke in Vrexian, the tongue of the Empire's greatest warriors. The same words, the same warning. It changed again and again. Thexal counted 47 languages before he stopped paying attention. The message continued cycling through hundreds, then thousands of different languages. Most of them, the ship's computer did not recognize at all. "Terran," Thexal said slowly. "Search the Imperial database. What is Terra?" The computer worked for several minutes. Finally, it produced results. They were fragmentary and old. Very old. "Terra appears in records dating back 8,000 years, the computer reported. References suggest a precursor species. Scientific consensus classifies these records as mythology. No physical evidence of Terra or Terrans has ever been confirmed." Thexal walked closer to the view screen. Beyond the boundary, a small yellow star glowed in the distance. It looked completely ordinary. Scans showed 9 planets, a few asteroid belts, nothing remarkable. The third planet from the star showed signs of life. Radio signals, electromagnetic emissions. A civilization, certainly, but not an advanced one by Imperial standards. "A myth," Thexal muttered. "These warnings are probably thousands of years old, left by some dead civilization to scare away primitive species." He made his decision. The Emperor would want to know what lay beyond this border. Thexal had his orders. Survey all new territories. Expand the maps of the Empire. This was just another system to catalog. "Take us across the boundary," he commanded. His crew hesitated. The navigation officer's claws tapped nervously on his console. "Sir, the warning is ancient superstition," Thexal interrupted. "We are the Galactic Empire. We do not run from old recordings and empty threats. Proceed." The Distant Pioneer moved forward. It crossed the invisible line in space. The warning buoys fell silent as the ship passed them. Nothing happened. Thexal allowed himself a small smile. As he thought, just ancient fear-mongering, he ordered the ship to continue toward the yellow star. They would survey it properly, then return home with data about this mysterious Terran exclusion zone. For 3 days, the survey proceeded normally. The ship's sensors mapped the outer planets, gas giants, ice worlds, rocky bodies, all completely normal. No defenses detected, no ships, no stations, no sign of any civilization capable of maintaining those warning buoys. On the 3rd day, they were close enough to examine the 3rd planet more carefully. It was beautiful. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. Green and brown landmasses held cities. Scans detected approximately 40 billion life forms. They were bipedal mammals, They used radio communications. They had satellites in orbit. Primitive fusion reactors provided some of their power. Chemical rockets carried them to their moon. "They're barely spacefaring," the science officer reported. "Technology level is at least 5 centuries behind the Empire. They haven't even left their own planet's orbit properly." Thexol nodded. This made no sense. How could such a primitive species maintain those ancient warning systems? They could not have built them. Perhaps they had found them, and simply let them continue broadcasting. He was about to order a closer approach when every system on the ship died. The lights went dark. The engines stopped. Gravity disappeared, sending loose objects floating through the air. Emergency backups did not activate. The crew cried out in alarm. Then, just as suddenly, some systems returned. Life support hummed back to life. Gravity restored. Basic lighting flickered on, but the weapons remained offline. The shield stayed down. The engines would not respond. A message appeared on every screen throughout the ship. It was written in perfect Imperial Common. "You were warned. Leave. You have 24 hours. Thexol tried every command he knew. Nothing worked. The ship would not respond. He could not fire weapons he could not even see. He could not raise shields. He could not engage engines. All he had was life support and basic navigation. His communications officer managed to restore short-range systems. Thexol immediately sent an emergency signal back toward Imperial space. Then he waited. 23 hours passed in tense silence. The crew checked every system 100 times. Nothing had been damaged. The ship was simply locked, like someone had reached inside their most advanced technology and switched it off. 1 hour before the deadline, Thexol made the only decision he could. "Navigation, orient us back toward the boundary, thrusters only." The basic maneuvering jets still worked. Slowly, painfully slowly, the distant Pioneer turned around. It began the long journey back to the border using only its weakest propulsion systems. The moment they crossed back over the invisible line, everything returned to normal. Engines roared back to life. Weapons came online. Shields activated. Every system the ship possessed worked perfectly, as if nothing had ever been wrong. Thexol stood on his bridge and stared at the view screen. Behind them, the warning buoys resumed their endless message. "Terran exclusion zone. Entry is forbidden. This is your only warning." He had received his warning. He had ignored it. And something out there, something around that ordinary yellow star, had proven it could reach into an Imperial vessel and shut it down with ease. Commander Thexol set course for the nearest Imperial outpost. He had a report to make. The Empire needed to know. There was someone in that exclusion zone. Someone old. Someone powerful. Someone who very much wanted to be left alone. Whether the Empire would listen was another question entirely. Emperor Vextal IX sat on his throne and listened to Commander Thexol's report with growing fury. Around him, the Imperial War Council stood in silence. These were the greatest military minds in the galaxy. Generals and admirals from a dozen different species. They had conquered worlds. They had crushed rebellions. They had never known defeat. "You retreated," the Emperor said slowly. His voice was calm, but everyone in the chamber recognized the danger in that calmness. "You retreated from a primitive species that barely knows how to leave its own planet." "Your Majesty," Thexol said carefully, "they demonstrated capabilities far beyond." "They demonstrated parlor tricks," the Emperor interrupted. "They shut down one small survey vessel. This proves nothing except that they found some ancient technology they do not even understand. And now you come before me, before the War Council, and suggest we respect their borders." He had delivered his report. He had done his duty. What the Emperor chose to do with the information was not his concern. The Emperor stood. He was tall for his species, with dark skin that held a faint blue tint. He had ruled for 30 years. In that time, The Empire had grown by 1,000 systems. He did not intend to stop now. "Admiral Krathnor," the Emperor said. A massive figure stepped forward. Krathnor was a Vrexian, one of the apex predator species that had joined the Empire 6 centuries ago. He stood 12 feet tall. His body was covered in thick scales. His arms ended in claws that could tear through steel. His people had conquered 40 worlds before the Empire had absorbed them. Since then, Krathnor himself had led campaigns across 100 systems. He had earned his title honestly. They called him Krathnor the Unconquered. "Your Majesty," Krathnor said. His voice was a deep rumble. "You will take a battle fleet into this Terran exclusion zone. You will locate whoever is responsible for these warnings. You will give them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, you will subjugate them completely. I want their technology. I want their worlds. And I want them to understand that no one threatens the Galactic Empire." Krathnor bowed his massive head. "It will be done, Your Majesty." "How large a fleet?" 5,000 ships. Use planet crackers if needed. Use dimensional weapons. Use whatever force is necessary. I want this matter resolved within 1 month. The War Council murmured its approval. 5,000 ships was a significant force. The Empire had used such fleets to conquer entire regions of space. It was overwhelming power. It was unstoppable. Krathnor left immediately to assemble his armada. Within 2 weeks, the fleet gathered at the edge of Terran space. 5,000 warships of every class. Done. Dreadnoughts that could level continents. Carriers that held thousands of fighter craft. Cruisers armed with weapons that could shatter planets. The flagship was the Inevitable, a massive vessel 5 kilometers long. It carried enough firepower to destroy a solar system. Krathnor stood on the bridge of the Inevitable and studied the tactical displays. His sensors showed him the same things Commander Thexel had reported. An ordinary yellow star. 9 planets. The 3rd planet showed the primitive civilization. 40 billion targets. No defenses. No orbital platforms, no fleet, no ships at all beyond basic satellites and a few small stations. "They have nothing," his tactical officer said. "No military presence we can detect, no weapons pointing at us, no shields protecting their planet." Krathnor growled low in his throat. He had expected more. He had hoped for a real fight. This looked like it would be over in hours. Perhaps the primitives would surrender immediately, once they saw the size of his fleet. "All ships, weapons hot, shields to maximum. We cross the boundary in formation. Stay alert. If they have some trick like they used on the survey vessel, I want to know immediately." The fleet moved forward as one massive wall of metal and firepower. 5,000 ships crossed into the Terran exclusion zone. They made it 15 light minutes past the boundary. Then every weapon system on every ship began to overheat. It happened simultaneously across the entire fleet. Particle beams melted, missile launchers fused into useless lumps, energy cannons turned into slag. The dimensional weapons, the most advanced technology the Empire possessed, simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there. The next moment, there was just empty space where they had been. Shields collapsed. Not damaged, not drained. They simply turned off. And nothing Krathnor's crew did could bring them back online. Alarms screamed across 5,000 ships. Crews scrambled to understand what was happening. Engineering teams reported the impossible. The weapons had not been hit by anything. They had not been overloaded. They had simply destroyed themselves all at once. A message appeared on every screen in the fleet. Second warning. Scientific records indicate you are capable of learning. Prove it. Turn back. Krathnor roared in frustration. He pounded his fist on the command console, denting the metal. "Find them. Where are they? Where is their fleet?" His sensor officer worked frantically. "Sir, I'm detecting I'm detecting... What? Gravity signatures. Thousands of them. No, millions. Surrounding the fleet. They just appeared. Krathnor stared at the tactical display. Surrounding his 5,000 ships were gravity signatures indicating the presence of objects. Ships, probably. Millions of them. They formed a perfect sphere around his fleet. Each signature indicated something massive, something powerful. Weapons of a type his sensors could not identify. All pointed at his ships, all locked on target. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, the signatures vanished, gone, like they had never been there at all. Were they real? Krathnor demanded. I don't know, sir. The sensors detected them, but they could have been false readings, or they could have been hiding, cloaked somehow. Krathnor made his decision. He had lost his weapons. His shields were gone, and something out there had just shown him it could surround his entire fleet without being detected until it wanted to be seen. All ships, retreat, back to the boundary, now. The fleet turned and ran. There was no other word for it. The pride of the Galactic Empire fled from an enemy they could not see and could not fight. 200 ships had taken damage to their engines during the weapon meltdown. They could not keep up with the retreat. Krathnor had to leave them behind. It tore at him, but he had no choice. He could not protect them. He could barely protect himself. The fleet crossed back over the boundary. Those who made it immediately checked their systems. Weapons were gone, melted beyond repair. Shields remained offline. But engines worked. Life support worked. They were alive. Krathnor watched his tactical display. The 200 ships he had left behind were still inside Terran space. He waited for them to be destroyed. It was what he would have done to an enemy fleet. 1 hour passed, then another. After 3 hours, the 200 ships began moving, not under their own power. Something was pushing them, gently, carefully, like a parent guiding a child. They were pushed back across the boundary. Once across, whatever had been moving them, let go. Krathnor received reports. All crew members unharmed. Ships damaged, but functional. No casualties. The Unconquered sat in his command chair and stared at the view screen. For the first time in his long military career, he had been defeated without a single shot being fired. The enemy had not killed anyone, had not destroyed anything. They had simply demonstrated that they could do so whenever they wished. And that terrified him more than any battle he had ever fought. He sent his report back to the Emperor. The Terran exclusion zone was not defended by primitives with old technology. It was defended by something far more advanced than the Empire. Something that could reach across space and turn the Empire's mightiest weapons into scrap metal. Something that had shown mercy when it could have shown destruction. Krathnor did not know what Terrans were, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Empire should have listened to the warning. The Imperial Senate chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives from 47 different species shouted at each other. Some demanded war. Others called for peace. A few simply sat in stunned silence, trying to comprehend what had happened. Emperor Vexthal watched from the seat above the chamber floor. His face showed no emotion, but inside he was furious. Admiral Krathnor, the Unconquered, had been defeated. 5,000 ships had retreated without firing a single shot. The report had spread through the Empire like wildfire. People were asking questions, dangerous questions. If the Empire could not defeat the Terrans, what did that mean for Imperial power? What other threats might be hiding in unexplored space? Were they truly as strong as they believed? The Emperor raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes, but eventually the chamber quieted. "We need answers," he said. "The Science Directorate will investigate. I want to know everything about these Terrans. I want to know their history, their capabilities, their weaknesses. Find me something I can use." The head of the Science Directorate, A small crystalline being named Sevix bowed. "We have already begun research, Your Majesty. The word Terran appears in many old records. Most species dismiss them as myths, legends, stories told to children, but now we are examining everything again." Over the next weeks, scientists across the Empire searched their archives. They found fragments, pieces of a puzzle that had been scattered across thousands of years and dozens of civilizations. One team discovered ancient ruins on a dead world. The ruins held writing in a language long forgotten. When finally translated, it spoke of visitors from a world called Terra. The visitors had given the extinct species knowledge of agriculture, medicine, and mathematics. The ruins were 40,000 years old. Another team found similar stories from 6 different extinct civilizations. Each one had been contacted by Terrans in their early development. Each had been given knowledge. Each had been told the same thing: grow wise, spread carefully. Remember that all species share this galaxy. We will be watching. The pattern repeated. Terra appeared in the oldest records of 17 different species. Always the same. Contact during primitive development. Gifts of knowledge. Then departure. But there was something else. Some records spoke of what happened when species became violent, warlike, aggressive toward others. 3 different civilizations had records of Terran intervention. Not to conquer, to stop, to contain, to force peace. One record was particularly detailed. It came from the Pelmoth, an ancient species now only numbering a few million across 3 worlds. Most considered them harmless and irrelevant, but they had the longest continuous historical records of any species in the Empire. Emperor Vexthal summoned the eldest Pelmoth to the capital. Her name was Grandmother Syra. She was 800 years old. She moved slowly, supported by mechanical assistants, but her mind remained sharp. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing as much as her aged body allowed. "You know something about the Terrans," the Emperor said. It was not a question. "I know what my ancestors recorded," Syra replied. "Stories passed down through our history. Most of my people have forgotten, but my family has always kept the old knowledge." "Tell me." Syra settled into a chair. Her mechanical supports adjusted to make her comfortable. 60,000 years ago, my people were primitives. We had just discovered fire. We lived in caves and hunted with simple tools. Then they came. Terrans. Humans. They look like us in some ways. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But they were different. Softer. Physically weaker. We could have broken them with our bare hands. She paused, her old eyes distant with memory. Not her memory, but the memories her people had preserved. They did not fear us. They taught us writing, mathematics, basic technology. They stayed for 3 generations. Our people loved them, called them the kind ones. Then they said they had to leave, that we needed to grow on our own. Our ancestors begged them to stay. They refused, but they left us a warning. What warning? The Emperor leaned forward. They told us we would meet other species someday. They told us to be kind, to share the galaxy, to remember that strength comes in many forms. And they told us that if we ever became a species that conquered and enslaved others, they would return, not to destroy us, but to stop us, to teach us again, whether we wanted to learn or not. They called it the terrible patience. Terrible patience? They said humans do not think in years or decades. They think in centuries, millennia. They are patient beyond understanding. They will watch. They will wait. They will give chances. But if someone refuses to learn, refuses to change, refuses to be better, then they act. And when they act, they do not stop until the problem is solved. Not with war, not with destruction, but with complete, total transformation. They will make you better, whether you want it or not. The Emperor sat back. These are just stories, myths from primitive times. Syra shook her head slowly. Perhaps, But my ancestors also recorded something else. They said humans gave us the stars. Not just knowledge, but actual gifts. They pointed us to habitable worlds. They left packages of advanced technology on our planet, set to unlock when we reached certain development levels. They guided our species from stone tools to starflight. Then they disappeared, and they asked only one thing. What? To be left alone, to pursue their own path in peace. They drew their boundary and withdrew behind it. My ancestors honored that request. They told their children to honor it. They told their children's children. For 60,000 years, my people have known not to enter Terran space. But we are a small species now, weak, forgotten. Our warning was lost. The Emperor dismissed Grandmother Sira, but ordered her accounts recorded and studied. The Science Directorate compared her stories to the other fragments they had found. Everything matched. The pattern was clear. Humans had been out in the galaxy for a very long time. They had contacted many species. They had helped them grow. Then they had withdrawn, asking only to be left in peace. But Emperor Vexthal did not see wisdom in these stories. He saw opportunity. If humans were pacifists, if they refused to destroy even when attacked, then they were vulnerable. Their mercy was weakness. Their patience was hesitation. While the Senate debated what to do, the Emperor made a secret decision. He would not attack with one fleet. He would attack with everything. Meanwhile, against all orders and common sense, a small ship slipped across the Terran boundary. It was an intelligence vessel, barely 30 meters long. Its hull used experimental stealth technology. Inside was a single pilot. Her name was Zella. She was a Morphix, a shape-shifting species prized for espionage work. Her mission was simple: get close to Earth, observe, assess the real threat level, return with actionable intelligence. Zella made it past the outer planets without incident. Her stealth systems worked perfectly. Perhaps the Terrans were not as advanced as everyone feared. She reached Earth's moon and prepared to enter orbit around the planet itself. That was when her ship stopped moving. Not damaged, not powered down, just stopped. Like an invisible hand had grabbed it. A voice spoke in her ship. It sounded warm, almost apologetic. It spoke in perfect Morphix. Hello, Zela. We know you're just doing your job. We're not your enemy, but we require our privacy. Please observe from here, then take your findings home. Help them understand. Zela tried everything. Her controls did nothing. She was held in place, unable to move forward or back. After several hours of failed attempts to escape, she gave up. If they were going to kill her, they would have done it already. So she observed. She pointed every sensor she had at Earth and the surrounding space. What she found made her forget how to breathe. The humans were not hiding primitive technology. They were choosing to use it. She detected quantum networks operating on principles the Empire had not even theorized. Gravity manipulation at scales that should have been impossible. Energy readings that suggested they were drawing power from sources she could not identify. She intercepted civilian communications. Normal people, talking about their daily lives. But the mathematics they used casually in conversation was beyond anything she had learned at the Empire's finest academy. Children's educational programs taught physics that contradicted everything she had been taught. Then they showed her something. A structure in high orbit around Earth. A memorial. It was vast, covered in names. Billions of names, trillions, in thousands of different languages. Zela was allowed to scan it, to read the plaque at its center. We learned the cost of empire. Never again. Let others find their own path. Zela immediately set course back to Imperial space. As she crossed the boundary, one final message appeared on her screen. We don't wish to rule. We wish to be left alone. Please convince your emperor. We're asking nicely. Zayla presented her findings to the Imperial Senate. She showed them the scans, the recordings, the intercepted communications, the memorial, everything she had witnessed during her 3 days held motionless in lunar orbit. The chamber fell silent as senators reviewed the data. Some looked troubled, others appeared thoughtful, a few seemed frightened. "They're more advanced than us," Senator Crix from the Vothar Collective said quietly. "Significantly more advanced in every measurable category." "And they choose not to expand," added Senator Lyra, representing the Crystalline Assembly. "They have the power to take whatever they want, but they stay in their small region of space." "Why?" "The memorial," Zayla said. "I believe it tells us why. Those names represent species they encountered before. Species they tried to help. Or perhaps species they ruled. The text suggests regret. They learned something from their past. Something that changed them fundamentally. Or it's a trick," Emperor Vexthal said. He had been sitting silently, watching the presentation. Now he stood. "They show you exactly what they wanted you to see. A memorial, a message of peace. Civilians using advanced mathematics, all designed to make us think they're powerful but peaceful. It's manipulation." "Your Majesty," Admiral Crathnor stepped forward. The massive Rexian looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for him. "I recommend caution. We have tested them twice. Both times they demonstrated capabilities far beyond ours, and both times they showed restraint. Perhaps we should honor their boundaries." "Restraint is not strength," the Emperor snapped. "It's weakness. If they were truly powerful, they would not hide behind borders. They would not ask nicely. They would conquer. The fact that they don't means they can't. They're bluffing." The Senate erupted into argument. Many agreed with the Emperor. The humans were clearly advanced, but advancement did not mean military strength. Perhaps they were scientists, philosophers, artists. Perhaps they had neglected weapons in favor of other pursuits. Perhaps they could be overwhelmed with sufficient force. Others urged caution. The warnings had been clear. The demonstrations had been effective. Why risk conflict when the humans asked for nothing except to be left alone? The debate continued for days. In the end, Emperor Vexthal made the decision. He was Emperor. The choice was his. "We will launch Project Terminus," he announced. "A full-scale invasion. 50,000 vessels. 500 million soldiers. We will attack from multiple points along their border simultaneously. We will overwhelm them with numbers. We will seize their technology and their worlds. And we will prove once and for all that the Galactic Empire cannot be threatened." Half the Senate walked out in protest. Admiral Crathnor resigned rather than lead the assault. Grandmother Sira requested an audience and begged the Emperor to reconsider. He refused to see her. The Emperor installed new military leadership, loyalists who believed in imperial destiny, who saw any refusal to fight as cowardice, who wanted glory and conquest. The fleet assembled. It was the largest military force the Empire had ever gathered. 50,000 ships of every class. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, assault ships. Troop transports carrying armies from 20 different species. Weapons that could crack planets. Bombs that could ignite atmospheres. Biological agents that could sterilize continents. They gathered at a dozen different points along the Terran border. The plan was simple. Cross simultaneously. Overwhelm any defenses. Reach Earth before the humans could organize resistance. Occupy the planet. Install Imperial rule. The fleet commanders synchronized their chronometers. On the Emperor's signal, all 50,000 ships would cross the boundary at once. The signal came. The invasion began. For the first hour, everything went according to plan. The ships crossed without incident. No weapons disabled them. No mysterious force stopped them. They accelerated toward the inner system, toward Earth, meeting no resistance at all. The fleet's commanders reported success. They would reach Earth within hours. Troop carriers prepared for planetary assault. Soldiers checked their weapons and armor. This would be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. Then every soldier and crew member in the entire invasion force heard a voice. It spoke inside their minds, in their own language, impossible to ignore or block out. You were warned. Twice. We tried diplomacy, we tried demonstration, we tried mercy. You have forced our hand. We are sorry for what comes next. Your leaders chose this. You did not. Remember that. Across 50,000 ships, weapons fused into useless metal, particle cannons welded shut, missile tubes melted, energy weapons dissolved. The biological weapons and planet crackers simply vanished, as if they had never existed. Every ship lost main propulsion. Engines died. Backup systems failed to activate. Only life support and basic environmental controls continued functioning. Then, humanity stopped hiding. Ships appeared in space. They emerged from nowhere, as if stepping through invisible doors. They were sleek, beautiful, built with elegant curves that seemed to flow like water. They moved in ways that violated physics. They seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially somewhere else. There were perhaps 200 human vessels. Against 50,000 Imperial ships, it should have been insignificant. But the human ships did not need to fight. They simply moved through the frozen armada like shepherds moving among sheep. Imperial crews watched helplessly as human vessels passed within meters of their hulls. The humans did not fire. They did not even charge weapons. They did not need to. A transmission reached every Imperial ship simultaneously. The voice was calm and patient. Your crews will not be harmed. You will be towed to the border and released. Your weapons are forfeit. Tell your Emperor this is your final warning. The next time Imperial forces cross this line, we will not be so gentle. We have asked for peace. We have warned you. We have shown restraint. Do not mistake patience for weakness. Then they showed the Imperial forces something, a brief sensor reading, a glimpse of what lay deeper in human space. Dyson spheres, massive structures built around stars, capturing all their energy, not one, not 10, thousands. Engineering projects on scales the Empire could not comprehend. Structures that made their largest space stations look like children's toys. And ships, millions of them, maybe more. Different designs, different sizes, all waiting, all dormant, all ready. The readings lasted only 10 seconds, then they disappeared. But every crew member, every soldier, every officer in the invasion force had seen them. The human vessels began towing Imperial ships back toward the boundary. They moved impossibly fast, dragging dreadnoughts like they weighed nothing. Crews reported feeling no acceleration, no stress on their hulls. The humans controlled gravity itself, making mass irrelevant. 6 hours after the invasion began, it was over. 50,000 ships sat just outside the Terran boundary. All weapons destroyed, all soldiers alive but shaken. Not a single casualty, not one death. The humans had disarmed the largest military force in galactic history without killing anyone. Messages poured in from the fleet to Imperial command. Admirals resigned. Generals requested reassignment. Entire crews reported psychological trauma. They had been rendered completely helpless. They had been shown technology so far beyond their understanding that it might as well be magic. And they had been treated with mercy they knew they did not deserve. The Emperor received the reports in his throne room. He read them in silence. His hands shook slightly, not with fear, with rage. "Assemble another fleet," he ordered. His advisors looked at each other nervously. "Your Majesty, we just lost 50,000 ships. Every weapon destroyed. The crews are traumatized. Perhaps we should assemble another fleet." But before any orders could be carried out, the Senate moved. For the first time in 3,000 years, they voted to remove a sitting emperor. The vote was unanimous. Even the emperor's own species voted against him. Emperor Vexthal IX was deposed, removed from power. The Senate formed an emergency government. Representatives from all 47 species. Their first action was to send a message toward Terran space. We wish to negotiate. Please. We want peace. 3 days later, a small human ship approached the border. It broadcast a simple message. We accept. Send your delegation. Come unarmed. Come in peace. Let us talk. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see what humanity truly wanted. The Imperial delegation consisted of 50 members, representatives from every species in the former empire. They traveled in a single unarmed vessel, its weapon systems removed entirely to show their peaceful intentions. Admiral Krathnor commanded the ship, chosen for his experience and his early wisdom in recognizing the danger. They crossed the Terran boundary without incident. A human ship appeared beside them, sleek and beautiful, glowing with soft light. A voice spoke over their communication system. Welcome. Please follow us. We will guide you to the meeting place. The human ship led them past the outer planets, into the inner system. As they traveled, the Imperial delegation saw wonders they could barely comprehend. Orbital structures that defied understanding. Energy patterns that made no sense according to Imperial physics. And everywhere, a sense of age. Of civilizations building upon civilizations. Of time, measured in geological epochs rather than historical periods. They did not go to Earth. Instead, the human ship brought them to a station orbiting the fourth planet Mars. The station was modest by Imperial standards, perhaps 300 meters across, simple in design, almost plain. But the sensors told a different story. The station existed partially in normal space and partially in other dimensions. It drew power from sources the Imperial ship could not detect. It contained technology that registered as impossible. 3 humans met them in the docking bay. Just 3. Not an army, not guards with weapons. 3 people in simple clothing. The delegation's members looked at them with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Humans were smaller than most species present. They stood between 5 and 6 feet tall. Their bodies looked soft, vulnerable. No claws, no natural armor. They looked weak. But everyone present had seen what human technology could do. They knew better than to judge by appearances. The lead human stepped forward. She was a woman of middle years, with dark skin and kind eyes. She smiled warmly. Welcome. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am a xenoanthropologist and diplomat. These are my colleagues, Dr. James Martinez and Dr. Keiko Tanaka. We are here to represent humanity in these negotiations. Admiral Krathnor bowed his massive head. I am Admiral Krathnor. On behalf of the former Galactic Empire, I thank you for agreeing to meet with us. Former Empire? Dr. Chen asked. Emperor Vexthal has been removed from power. The Senate has established a democratic council to govern our people. One of our first acts was to request this meeting. Dr. Chen's smile widened. I'm glad to hear that. Change is difficult, but often necessary. We have prepared a conference room. They walked through the station's corridors. The Imperial delegates noticed everything. The walls were decorated with art from thousands of different cultures. Some they recognized as human. Others looked familiar, styles from species long extinct. Still others were completely unknown. The conference room was large and comfortable. Chairs had been prepared for every species present, designed to accommodate different body types. Food and drink waited on tables, carefully selected to be safe for each species' biology. We know you've traveled far, Dr. Martinez said. Please, eat, drink, rest. There's no hurry. The delegation sat, For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Senator Crix of the Vothar Collective broke the silence. "We owe you an apology. 3 times we entered your space without permission. 3 times you showed us mercy we did not deserve. We are grateful you are willing to talk with us at all." Dr. Chen nodded. "We understand curiosity. We understand fear of the unknown. We understand the impulse to test boundaries. We were young once too. We made mistakes, terrible mistakes. We learned from them." "The memorial," Zayla spoke up. She had been invited to the delegation as an advisor. "The one in Earth orbit. Those names, who were they?" The 3 human diplomats exchanged glances. Dr. Tanaka answered, her voice soft. "People we failed to save. Species we tried to uplift, who destroyed themselves before they were ready. Civilizations we contacted too early, interfering with their natural development. Worlds we tried to protect, but lost to disasters we should have prevented. Every name represents a lesson, a reminder, a promise to do better." "How many names?" Admiral Krathnor asked. 3,400,000,600,000,000, 12,842. Dr. Chen said quietly. "We remember them all. Every individual, every species, every world. We will never forget." The room fell silent. The weight of that number pressed down on everyone present. "You blame yourselves for all those deaths?" Grandmother Sira asked. She had insisted on being part of the delegation despite her age. "We bear responsibility for our actions and their consequences," Dr. Martinez said. "Long ago, humanity thought we could guide the galaxy, that we knew best, that our way was the right way. We were wrong. We learned the cost of arrogance. We learned that every species must find its own path. We withdrew. We set boundaries. We asked only to be left alone to pursue our work." "What work?" Senator Lyra asked. Dr. Chen stood and walked to a window. Beyond, the red sands of Mars stretched to the horizon. "We're trying to solve the fundamental problems of existence. How to save the universe from heat death. How consciousness emerges from quantum interactions. How to preserve knowledge across cosmic timescales. How to create art that will outlast stars. We're trying to understand everything, to become better than we were, to grow up as a species." She turned back to face the delegation. "And we prefer to do that without distractions. War is a distraction. Conquest is a distraction. Empire building is a distraction. We've already done all that. It led nowhere good. So we withdrew. We set our boundaries. We hoped others would respect them." "But we didn't," Krathnor said. "No, you didn't. So we responded with the minimum force necessary to make our point clear." "You could have destroyed us," Krathnor said. It was not a question. "Yes. Why didn't you?" She leaned forward, her expression earnest. "Because destruction is easy. Because killing solves nothing. Because every species in this galaxy is precious and unique. You made a mistake. Several mistakes. But mistakes are how we learn. We wanted to give you the chance to learn. To change. To choose a better path." "And if we hadn't changed?" Senator Crix asked. "If the Emperor had sent another fleet?" The 3 human diplomats looked at each other. Dr. Tanaka answered. "Then we would have disabled every military asset in your entire empire. Simultaneously. Every weapon, every ship, every installation. And then we would have spent the next century helping you rebuild as a peaceful federation. We would have taught you, guided you, reformed your government, restructured your economy, redirected your culture away from conquest and toward cooperation." She paused. "It would have been for your own good. You would have lost your independence, your right to self-determination. You would have become our responsibility, our burden, our children in a sense. And we didn't want that. Neither did you." "The terrible patience," Grandmother Sira whispered. Dr. Chen looked at the old Pelmoth with respect. "Your people remember. Yes, we are patient. We think in long time scales. We don't give up. If we decide you need to change, we will make you change. Kindly, carefully, but completely. We thought you would prefer to change yourselves. Admiral Krathnor felt a chill run down his spine. The humans had not threatened them with destruction. They had threatened them with forcible improvement, with being conquered not by weapons, but by kindness, with losing their freedom not to violence, but to paternalistic care. Somehow, that was more terrifying. We want peace, he said firmly. We want to respect your boundaries. We want to establish formal relations. Trade, perhaps. Cultural exchange. But at a distance, as you prefer. Dr. Chen smiled. That sounds wonderful. Let's discuss terms. The negotiations took 3 days. The Treaty of Terra was surprisingly simple. The boundary would be formalized and respected. No Imperial vessels would enter Terran space without explicit permission. In return, humanity would not interfere in Imperial affairs. But they would trade information, share art and music and literature, establish cultural exchange programs. The humans offered to share some of their less dangerous technologies, medical advances, agricultural improvements, clean energy systems. They offered nothing military, no weapons, no shields, no faster-than-light engines. When asked why, Dr. Martinez smiled. Those things you can develop yourselves, in time. What we're giving you are the things that reduce suffering, that improve lives, that make civilization more pleasant. The rest, you'll figure out. Or you won't. Either way, it's your journey. On the final day, as the delegation prepared to leave, Admiral Krathnor asked the question that had been bothering him. Dr. Chen, when we invaded with 50,000 ships, you showed us your deeper infrastructure, the Dyson spheres, the vast fleets. Was that real, or was it a trick to frighten us? Dr. Chen looked at him for a long moment. Admiral, the truth is more complicated than you realize. What we showed you was real, but it was also just a tiny fraction of what exists. We showed you what we thought you could comprehend without breaking your spirits. We showed you enough to make you understand that fighting us would be futile. But we didn't show you everything. Some things you're not ready to know yet. Will we ever be ready? Perhaps. In time. If you choose wisdom over conquest, if you grow, if you change. Maybe in a few thousand years, we'll show you more. Maybe we'll invite you to work alongside us on the great projects. Maybe you'll become our partners instead of our neighbors. That choice is yours. The delegation left Terran space with the signed treaty. They returned to Imperial space as heroes. The species of the former empire celebrated. Peace had been achieved. War had been avoided. The Senate ratified the treaty immediately. They established the new boundary markers. They broadcast the treaty to all member worlds. And deep in Terran space, humanity returned to its work. The great projects continued. The search for answers proceeded. The art and science and mathematics of a species that had outgrown empire carried on, undisturbed, in the quiet spaces between the stars. Sometimes, in the centuries that followed, ships from the empire would approach the boundary. They would see the warning buoys, still broadcasting after all this time. They would read the message, Terran Exclusion Zone. Entry is forbidden. This is your only warning. And they would turn back, not out of fear, though fear was certainly there, but out of respect, out of gratitude, out of the understanding that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is to leave them alone. Humanity had asked for nothing but peace and privacy. The galaxy, having learned its lesson, finally gave it to them. And in that peace, both humanity and the Empire found something better than conquest. They found the freedom to become whatever they chose to be. The end came not with war, but with wisdom. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of all.